exile might be beneficial for you, for yourself internally, for the community. So there's reasons for this thing as well. Number 29. No one should injure himself or bring himself or others into dangerous situations in which there is no benefit, as occurs when someone drives at an excessive speed. Okay? So that would be the obvious option, right? Don't be driving at excessive speed because you're putting yourself and others in danger. But we need to be honest with ourselves and ask, what would the Torah think about bungee jumping? What does the Torah think about parkour? What does it think about football, where now we know that creates a tremendous amount of brain damage? So the plain answer is, it is forbidden, right? You want to pick up a game of flag football with your friends. You want to do a little football with your boys after class, no problem. You want to sign up for a league where you're going to have a 250-pound man run into you as hard as he can into your head. You're asking for a disaster. Parkour. Maybe you've seen 150 hours worth, 1,000 hours worth of videos on YouTube. If you try to jump from one rooftop to another and miss, you will die or you will break your leg, right? So these are all things that the Torah is not interested in. We live in a culture today where it's like, oh, wow, it's very cool to be doing things like this. Or like, look, we're going cave jumping. So the Torah is, telling you maybe stay at home and read a book about the cave instead of deciding to jump right into it. Okay. How much is left of here? Okay, nice. So we'll wrap this up. 30. A guardrail should be built around a roof to avoid danger. And so too, preventative measures should be adopted concerning any potentially dangerous situation. So this is a famous law. This is also, and there's nothing we need to be ashamed of, this is the Code of Hammurabi talks about this as well, about needing to have this guardrail around your roof. So you'll see in many roofs in Israel's, there are always like a rail on top. I'm sure this is true also in the States due to code, but obviously from a religious perspective as well, we also need to have this as well. Someone might go on your roof, not me. Someone kicks a ball, the ball falls on my roof. He goes into my building, he climbs up to the top floor, opens up the roof, goes on top, and then there's no banister over there, he falls. In reality, the door to the roof should really be locked, right? But this is giving us more of a general understanding, which is building codes, building guidelines. When you have babies, putting socket covers, right? Or baby proofing the house, car seats in cars. So we don't want to be choked by, bureaucrats telling us things that we have to do. Like in Israel right now, it's a law. Every new car has to have a feature in it that when you leave the car, it tells you to check the back seats, right? Because too many people were left in the back and they were killed, right? Now you could be saying like, why is the government be forcing me to get these stuff? That's like a separate conversation. But what the Torah is expecting from us is to use all those preventative measures and really take these things into consideration. Be aware of our surroundings. We're walking down the street and we see a pothole on the floor. We should call the municipality. We should let people know. It's up to us, right? If we ignore it, we say nothing, and the next day we hear in the news that a little kid fell inside, that's on us. We could have said something. We should be aware of this as well. Care should be taken, number 31. Care should be taken. You're still seeing the screen. Care should be taken not to place any obstacles on the road that could cause injury to any other person. Such obstacles should be removed from any location where passerby could sustain damage or injury. So like I just said, a ditch in the floor, those kind of issues, we need to take them very, very seriously as well. 32, according to commonly accepted ethical standards, this is the second time we're seeing this, or maybe the third time we're seeing this, which the rabbis over here are bringing in what already is the moral norm and attaching it into Torah requirements as well. Ethical standards: the prohibition of murder includes any behavior that diminishes the life of another, such as public embarrassment, insult, or even unfair competition in business. Okay, so also very, very interesting. So murder, we just expanded murder more over here. In Hebrew, it's called halbanat panim, making someone's face go white. In a certain sense, it's almost as murder And the sense is his face went white because he was so embarrassed, all the blood left him. That's why his face went white. But and we can see this today, obviously, with canceling people in the cancel culture, what we do to people's reputations, what we do to their livelihood. This is akin to murder in some cases. And the Torah comes out against this in a very harsh manner. And, talk isn't cheap, like we just said. You need to be very careful with the blessings you say and the oaths you make. And even in burying someone is something that is very, very, very bad. And we should be very, very careful. And to recognize that this is, I talk to my children and I say, like, don't bully, right? But it's more than don't bully or don't talk about someone because, like, that's not nice. Don't do that because look what this is. This is someone's life. There's someone's soul over here. We're affecting him. We could be creating a tremendous amount of trauma for this person. So we need to take it extremely seriously. No one should say anything about, by the way, about unfair competition in business. Just as an example that the Torah uses is, I have a pharmacy and now Billy opens up a new pharmacy right next to mine. Right? So the Torah says, like, you can't do that. You are affecting their livelihood. You are moving business away from them. It's just not moral to act in that sense. And that kind of competition is, in a certain sense, that is a monetary murder at that point. Number 33. No one should say anything bad about another person, even if it is true. And even more so, should not tell lies about that person. I'm going to continue with 34 because it could seem a little confusing. It is permissible to publicize the bad deeds of an evil person in order that this person will not continue to cause damage to others in order to set them straight. And so too, when there is a need to check someone's suitability for a certain position, it is permissible to ask about his history and circumstances. So if Billy Ray is reading just number 33, he's like, what are you talking about? I have a foster home. I bring people in. I got to know who's coming in over here. So 34 kicks in and we say, of course. You got to know if this guy's a rapist. You got to know if this guy's on like that register you guys have of sex offenders. So of course we need to take those things into consideration. We don't want them to create doing any bad or damaging anyone. However, when it comes to let's say dating right now, yes, I don't want to say it with a sociopath, but I hear that Cheryl wants to set a bill right now with Claire, and I've had bad experiences with Claire. Slow your roll. Okay, maybe Claire's changed. Maybe that was just you. Don't go out now bad-mouthing Claire because you just had that bad experience with her. And definitely, obviously, don't be telling lies about that person, obviously. But again, it's how important defamation is, how important is making sure that you are protecting someone's name, because in a name, that carries a lot of weight, both psychologically, monetarily, socially. So we have to be very, very, very careful with that. And again, this is just stressing how talk is not cheap. All right. At the end. 35. A person should not hate another person secretly in his heart without revealing to that person what, in fact, his feelings towards him. It is best, of course, that he should not hate him at all. So beautiful over here, but the Torah is recognizing you might hate him. We have a beautiful example of this with the Joseph and his brothers, right? And they told him that we don't like him. And Rashi, the commentary, famously says that was sort of a credit to them, that they wore their hearts on their sleeves. What they said is what they meant. And because of that, because at the very least there was dialogue, and that's what number 35 is saying over here. Hate is bad. We get that. But what's worse is no dialogue, because then is just destruction, right? And I spoke about this in, I think 2 weeks ago in the little weekly portion video I sent, where we could see with Adam and Eve, we have our first sin because there's bad communication between Adam and Eve. Then we see there's some sort of communication with Cain and Abel. They're calling each other brother, but it ends with death. And it goes on and on and on. But when it gets to Jacob and Joseph and his brothers, yes, they hated him, but they managed to move from hate all the way to love. And we even see that stress in the verses, because they say, now that our father Jacob is dead, maybe our brother Joseph only was protecting us and loving us because he wanted to appease our father. But now that our father Jacob is dead, he's going to come and get us. And Joseph goes to them and says, fear not. I love you guys. I'm not mad at you guys. It's all good. And the reason that was possible is because they never stopped talking. Even when they were hateful for each other, there was that communication. So here we say it's very, very important to not keep these things in your heart. They weigh heavy on us. I told this recently to my son about lying, how it weighs heavy on our heart, right? We don't want to be having this with us. 36. 36. Well, before I jump to 36, I'd also mention that on the Pirkei Avot class I gave, we also mentioned how God, when the Israelites passed the Red Sea, and then the Egyptians go through, the waters cover them over, and they find their demise. And the Midrash says that the angels were singing, were praising, and God gets very mad at them. He says, my creations are floating in the water dead, and you are rejoicing. Now, we argue that the Israelites, it was okay because they were directly involved with this. So like that was like a human reaction that they had. But for the angels that should know better, he says, why would you be happy when my creations are being killed? Right? So we're not trying to sow hate. We're not trying to send hate out there either, even for our enemies. We're ultimately trying to, yes, we want them to fail, but we're not hateful of them. 36, what is hateful to you? Do not do to anyone else. So this is a famous line that Hillel said. Yes, 184. Am I making that up? 184. Yeah, no, it doesn't say it over there, but I'm sure it's Hillel. So in a certain sense, this goes back to what we said earlier about like love thy fellow as you love yourself. However, we mentioned that was a little more difficult. Knowing what the other one loves is harder than knowing what the other one hates. It's more common that we share common things that we hate with regards to things we don't want being done to us. So at the very least, put yourself in that person's shoes. And we even say in Hebrew, it's al tadun adam al shetagia lekomo. Don't judge someone until you walk the mile in his shoes, right? And then the sages also say, and it's very rare that you're ever going to walk a mile in someone's shoes. So don't judge him, basically, because you're never really going to fully understand their background, their context, their story. So try not to judge them and try to see them in the best way possible. Last one, 37. Although wasting of seed is not explicitly forbidden to Noahides, it is still not an appropriate act. But for medical reasons or for fertility treatments, it is permissible. So the reason it's not recommended, for Jews, it's you can't. There too, for medical reasons, obviously you can. It's to save someone's life. But why this is not an appropriate act? Not because you're going to go blind or God is standing in the sky being mad at you. Here you are elevating your personal pleasure instead of adding pleasure to the world, creating more life, creating more joy in the world. You're just deciding to be egocentric, think about yourself, and think about your own pleasure. And the Torah doesn't want that happening. Doesn't want you focusing on that end. Yes, you could have a good drink. You could hang out with the boys. We're not saying someone can't enjoy himself, someone can't laugh. But if your life turns into only laughing and only becoming a comic, then that's not the ideal. So is there room and place for sexual pleasure? Of course, it's recommended. It's commanded to do so. However, participating in that act in a closed, sterile loop that is just for personal pleasure is obviously for Noahides and for the world, not an appropriate act. With that, we wrap up chapter 5 and we move on to chapter 6, which will be the family. But we will continue so next week. And so I hope you all found this beneficial and enjoyable, and that you guys understood what we were talking about over here. Of course, if there are any questions and any inquiries you guys have, as always, feel free to shoot it up the ladder. We also now have our very own rabbi in the Discord as well, which we could ask questions to. I am speaking to that rabbi and assisting him any way I can. And he also will have access to the World Noahide Center, so he can ask some questions as well. So if anything comes up, do not hesitate to ask. And remember, when you ask questions, many times other people don't feel comfortable or embarrassing to ask that question, but you might be doing them a favor as well by asking those questions. I want to just make sure there's any notes. No, today was more relaxed. Lynn, hello. I hope all's well, that you're doing well and having a great day. Bill, you're here. And Jacob, the Noahide stream is still going, so we will start when that is over. I don't know what he's starting, but he's starting something. You're muted, Sandy.
Don't they do Tanakh? No, that's on Thursdays.
Yeah,
they do.
No. He does Tanya now?
That's what I meant.
Yeah, maybe he does Tanya now. So anyone that wants to dive into the secrets of the Torah, they are doing so now. Bill, all okay?
Yes, sir. I got some questions, but I'll send them in the Discord.
And so please do. And I really appreciate your conversation you were having with Jason about raising children, helping children. So that was very, very nice. With that, I bid you adieu, and I will see you guys next week.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, the Noahide stream is done. So, Tanya, as soon as Ben shows up, we will start that. Ben!
Yaakov.
Ben!
How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
That's good. You woke up early today?
Very early today.
Mm-hmm. It was a nice conversation that you had with Rabbi Delphin.
Dolphin, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the type of conversation we generally have in this corner. It was a little rushed and stuff. And yeah, I mean, he's I'm curious to see his books and stuff. I haven't seen his books. I don't know what they're like. I mean, he was in Los Angeles 92 to 96, so I probably have met him. I can't imagine that I didn't.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and Cafe Schmooze. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to ask. I wanted to ask him more about Rabbi Yoel Kahn and Rabbi Meir Abasera and stuff, but like, Yeah, it was a short time, but he has his channel, and what I found most impressive is he's willing to have the discussions a lot of people don't want to have,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I mean, if you watch his latest video that I saw, he was so he Rabbi Eli Cohen was the guy who, if you watched the famous videos, hello Chezi, um, he was the one who had gotten a bullhorn from the police and was yelling at people,
Yeah.
telling people to please get out and
Mhm.
give the police room. So he brought him onto his channel and frankly asked difficult questions that I'm not sure Rabbi Cohen gave the best or realistic answers to. But he was dealing with it seriously as, oh no, it's not a question of just trying to um, minimize what happened. Like on Twitter, I saw one person who was blaming the news the Orthodox Jewish news sites which had first reported on the craziness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, hello, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, you don't. Yeah, I mean the trade off here is obviously that you don't want a wound to fester. It's already has been festering for a very long time. I wasn't even aware of
Look,
how
it's been festering.
770 was so divided itself. So
Yeah, it's been festering for 30 years, and let's face it, 770 is a dump right now. And there's no reason why the world headquarters of Chabad should be a dump that a literal gang of homeless, like, funny enough, Israeli hoodlums have taken over through physical force.
Mhm.
But nobody wants to actually clamp down. And unfortunately, I mean, when Rabbi Cohen and Rabbi Dolphin were talking on his channel, Rabbi Cohen seemed to be like, oh no, eviction proceedings isn't the way, and frankly, they have Agudat Hasidei Chabad has to ultimately, I think. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Chazi. The Rav had a specific tradition regarding the whole door door. Not sure. Oh, you mean Milchama Amalek? Bahavaya? The whole door door? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Chazi. Yeah. So, all that.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
You're pretty good.
Things are good in Texas.
Things are good. Things are a little slow. It's been freezing a little bit, so it's been interesting to experience that around here. In New York, it's so easy to freeze. You don't really feel it. But here, it's like, yeah,
it's surprising to freeze.
It's surprising, and you got to deal with stuff, and yeah, it's you're a little closer to the elements.
Chazi says, must blame the Israelis. Well, I mean, the funny thing is, and this is one of the reasons I liked Rabbi Dolphin's response, he was one of the few people who's generally actually responded, like blaming they're usually referred to as the Tzarfatim.
I know them.
Or is it
from
Tzarfatim or Tzfatim? Because they're
Tzarfatim, maybe.
They're part of the problem is Tzarfat, is Tzfat, and part of the problem is the French Israelis. The Chezi's actually talking about the Tanya. Why would we actually be talking about Tanya? Like, why are you looking at Tanya in the Tanya discussion?
Yeah. This is
Um,
what you on 47?
Yes, this is
Nice.
47.
Gotta confirm.
Yes, this is 47. I'll just say, like, one of the things I liked about what Rabbi Dolphin has to say about 770 is he blames the leadership, as well he should.
Mhm.
And this Saturday is Yud Shvat, when the anniversary of when the previous Rebbe passed away, and when the Rebbe took leadership, and so, like, he's right. And I mean, I wanted to talk to him more about Rabbi Yoel Kahn, because in a very real sense, Rabbi Yoel Kahn, despite Chabad not having a Rebbe, was the senior chassid, was the person who was very widely respected, and he was able to keep things in check a bit. And I have to wonder if he was alive. And the fact is, look, he passed away too. And so, yeah. Yeah. And I guess we should actually probably study Tanya one of these days.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
You gonna go or should I go?
Go for it. I think I started last time.
Okay. והנה בכל דור ודור ובכל יום ויום חייב אדם לראות עצמו כאילו הוא יצא היום ממצרים. Right? So we have a famous, it's in the Haggadah and in the Mishnah, right? Which says that there's an obligation on every Jew to have, to view as if he left Egypt today. והיא יציאת נפש האלוקית ממאסר הגוף משקה דחביה. And that is so, I mean, this is obviously an interpretation of what spiritually that means, but that Yetziat Mitzrayim is the release of the divine soul from the confinement of the body, the serpent's skin. Likhalel biychud or ein sof baruch hu al yedei esek haTorah v'hamitzvot bichlal. And this isn't some sort of Gnostic escape from the material world. It is actually, like we discussed when we discussed Bati Legani, right? It is actually the return of Ikar Hashchina, God's desire, into the where it was from the very beginning, right?
Right. There's a sense of connected to Bati Legani, like that kafia.
It's kafia and it's hafcha, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like there is a dynamic of subordination or a collaboration to an extent, but this is a tool. This is something that you use together. I like how I liked it. This sounds very simple, but I liked how I was listening to Rabbi Gottlieb, and he was saying about, remember that what is a man is not a soul. A man is a soul plus a body. So
right, yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's simple, but it's important.
Right. So this is the opposite of the Gnostic view, right? So the Gnostic view is the world was perfect, and then there was some form of evil which created the world as it exists now, and that now we our hope is to return to the world as it was before creation.
Yeah.
The Jewish view of it is the opposite. Yes, we believe that before the world existed, there was God and in his perfection, but that God created the world because in the end, right, it will in fact have a greater perfection, right? Ra'iti yitron hachokma min hasichlut ki yitron ha'or min hachoshech. Right? I saw that greater is wisdom from folly, that just as the greatness of the darkness is from the light. Right? So that's it's the opposite idea, is that the perfection of this world is something that is in fact superior. Like, and 2,000 years ago, the Greek response to Judaism was, what do you mean resurrection of the dead? Who would want to come back? Like, it's not something they viewed was a good thing, right? Why would you want to be back in this world, right? Whereas the Jewish view was the complete opposite.
Right, and in the Jewish view, at least, I mean, not including the Rambam, which is interesting, is that the return of the resurrection involves the body as well.
Right. I mean, what exactly the Rambam? I mean, in his halachic works, ultimately, chapter 12 of Hilchot Melachim, of the laws of kings and wars in the Mishnah Torah, ultimately he is he says that it's not we don't know exactly, but there is this idea of tzaddikim yoshvin ateratan beroshan, right? So that they will be sitting with crowns on their heads, nenen miziv hashchina, right? What exactly that means? I mean, he certainly seemed to have a more rationalistic and allegorical view of it, but what he says is, we don't know. Like, this is the type of thing that we this is the type of thing that we will have to
figure out the details.
Yeah, see the details. I mean, honestly, it's worth looking at chapter 12. It's the final. It's how he ends the thing. He's like, anybody who tells you that they know exactly how these things are going to be is a fool or a liar.
Yeah.
Right? Because we see that there's been so much discussion among various people all through the years, right? And there's no clear resolution. So anyone who now thinks like, oh, I got it figured out, right? It's kind of like, hello, like, just cool your horses, and it'll be what it will be.
Yeah.
Okay, weiter. ובפרט בקבלת מלכות שמיים בקריאת שמע, שבה מקבל וממשיך עליו ייחודו יתברך, בפירוש באומרו השם אלוקינו השם אחד. So especially when a person says Shema, when he accepts the and draws down the unity of God, clearly when he says the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Ke'Eloheinu hu kamo Elokei Abraham v'chulu, lefi shahaya batel v'nichlal b'yichud or ein sof baruch hu. Right? So when we earlier he explained that when we say our God, right? It's like the God of Abraham. Why? Because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the shepherds were batel l'ritzono, right? They were people who did that which God wanted us to do, right? And so that's why we say Elokeinu, right? It is our God. How is it our God? In that when we do that which He wants, we represent Him in the world, right? He becomes our God. רק שאברהם זכה לזה במעשיו והילוכו בקודש ממדרגה למדרגה, right? Abraham specifically had a particular merit to it from degree to degree. כמו שכתוב ויישא אברהם הלוך ונסוע, right? Like it says, just one second. Like it says, Avram went on a journey, right? From journey to journey. Aval anachnu Yerusham umatana hi lanu, right? This is something that we've inherited. Shenatan lanu et Torato v'hilbish ba retzono v'chokhmato yitbarach hamiyuchadim b'mahuto v'ba'atzmuto yitbarach v'tachlit hayichud, right?
Wait, so
yeah,
with Avam, why I can understand if I'm trying to think about this is like the metaphor of going back and forth and like getting more and more insight, getting more and more treasures. But then here they also mention the south. So what is the relation of the south? What is the esoteric level of south, which alludes to the highest possible degree? This is in the notes. Is this too much for us, or what's going on?
Well, okay. Abraham progressed from level until he attained the esoteric level of south, Darom, which alludes to the highest possible degree of love for God. Abraham then achieved this state as a result of his own labors.
So this is the south is the labor, obviously Mitzrayim.
Yeah, honestly, south. I mean, Negba. This is a bit beyond me. What I can say is that in his journeys, right? So he's distinguishing between us as how we have inherited a certain capacity from our forefathers, as opposed to the level of a tzaddik, right, who can bring down holiness in a greater way, right? Abraham, in a very real sense, was a father, right?
Yeah.
So that, and I mean, it's very nice to try to eventually get to that level, but one of the main lessons that Tanya teaches us is that it is each person, according to their capacity and their level, has a certain avoda, right? And in a very real sense, it's like he's kind of, and this is honestly, it gets into cognitive behavioral therapy, right? This recognition that, okay, there's level upon level upon level,
yeah,
and recognizing, okay, if I can't reach that level, I can reach where I can reach, and each person is, in a sense, to try for their level of optimal development, right? Because that level of optimal development, that's where you are actually doing work, right? And that goes back to what we were saying about it's kafia and it's hapcha,
right. And at your level, yeah, you got to understand your status where you're at. assessing your situation, what's specific, what's relevant to you, as opposed to some imaginary or idealistic expectation that you might put yourself that does not reflect your real life.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into that on the individual level and on the social level, people being disconnected from reality.
I mean, honestly, when also, I mean, right now as the politics is heating up, people are getting very involved in things which, while they may be exciting and upsetting and whatever, they're not practical and they're not you have no influence to. And even like in a smaller scale, in a microcosm of that, in like this Jordan Peterson sphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about, okay, so like Jordan Peterson has no idea who I am, and he's not listening to this to anything on my channel, right? And like, so if we're doing things in a correct way and we are connected to that next level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then hopefully this, like, you become batel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you become nullified to God, right? And God acts through you, with you, towards his will.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And each of us has his chelek in that small part. As opposed to like trying to be God yourself, trying to direct things, right? It's one of the hardest and weirdest mishnayot in Pirkei Avot, right? It says batel retzoncha bishvil retzono, right?
Yeah.
Nullify your will for his will. Kedei sheyibatel retzon acherim bifnei retzoncha. I think that's basically the words,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that he will nullify the will of others for yours, right? And it's kind of like, well, what are you saying here? If I nullify my will to his will, so why would it matter if he nullifies the will of others for me? Right? Yeah. And like the whole thing seems very twisted, but when you really think about what it's saying, it's saying conform yourself to godliness, and everything will become conformed to godliness.
Right. So it says, conform yourself to godliness, and then everything will conform to yourself, which is which is a conduit to godliness.
Yeah. That was a lot of talking about a note I don't understand very much.
It's been useful.
Okay. Right. So for us, it's a Yerusha. We're not Mahalchem the way he was. And this is, in a sense, as if God has given himself to us. Since his wisdom and will are one with him, through Torah study and performance of mitzvot, we are able to take him as if it were and be united with him.
Yeah.
Right? We are representing godliness into the world. Did
you see the Jordan Peterson and Vervaeke talk?
Which one?
I think it was just yesterday. Maybe was it uploaded just yesterday?
Oh, I did not see it one recently.
Yes, they have a new talk. It's interesting. In some of it, they talk about the sacred. So it's an interesting conversation.
Okay.
But it kind of reminded me of that. But yeah.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Mhm.
Okay. כמו שכתוב בזוהר הקדוש על פסוק ויקחו לי תרומה, the לי כלומר אותי, right? So there's an explanation in the Zohar. There's in Parshat Truma, it says, I believe it's Parshat Truma, it says, V'yichu li, take for me, right?
Mhm.
Take for me a donation, a gift, right? An offering.
Yeah.
And the Zohar apparently explains there, V'yichu li, take me as an offering, right? Which
Mhm.
obviously is not the Pashut understanding. The Zohar interprets the word teruma as referring to the Torah, in as much as it is a composite of the word Torah and the letter mem. Li truma,
Mhm.
right? So Torah mem. So Torah li is truma. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Alluding to the Torah was given after Moses' 40-day sojourn on the mountain. The numerical value of mem is 40. The Zohar goes on to explain that through terumah, through Torah, Jews are able to take me, right, li, right, which is also 40, to take God.
So what he's trying to say, or at least at one aspect of it, is like Torah plus you know like that kafia, like the subordination or like challenge, sojourn.
Yeah,
How do you say that?
sojourn, yeah.
Sojourn. Yeah, that Torah plus that can, that then you can
Yeah,
bring.
yeah. I mean, this is it's interesting. I don't know if I had considered it very much before. I'm pretty sure I've read this chapter of Tanya before, but that may have been many, many years ago. Okay. V'hava le lememar utruma. Right? So even according to this understanding, V'yichu li truma, right?
Yeah.
It should have said V'yichu li utruma, right? So if you're going to say that it means take me, right? That it should have said and a truma, right? Ella mishum the kula chad, right? And it doesn't say take me and a truma because all of it is one and the same thing. Ayin sham heitev. So once you study the Zohar, that particular section, he recommends you take very seriously. V'zehu she'omrim v'titen lanu Hashem Elokeinu ba'ahava, right? And this is what we say that you have given us with love, right? Ki be'or panecha natata lanu Hashem Elokeinu. For by the light of your countenance have you given us, O Lord our God, right? Mm-hmm. So we were stressing the giving of God to us, v'lazeh, therefore, ein monea lanu mitvekut hanefesh biyichudo ve'oro yitbarach ela haratzon she'im ein ha'adam rotzeh klal chas v'shalom ledavka bo. Right? The only thing that can get in the way is if, God forbid, a person's will is against it, right? That he doesn't want it because God is trying to give it to you. And as I often say, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. מיד שרוצה מקבל ממשיך עליו אלוקותו יתברך ואומר השם אלוקינו השם אחד, הרי ממילא נכללת נפשו בייחודו יתברך, דרוח הייתי רוח ואמשיך רוח. That a spirit brings, it is lahavi in Aramaic.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And brings down, draws forth a spirit. Right? So all you have to do is stop getting in God's way. You hear that?
It's like a magnet.
Yeah.
A soul magnet.
There you go.
Or your soul is a magnet to the Spirit of God. Yeah.
So to go back to what he said in the beginning, Vehi bechinat yetziat Mitzrayim, and that's what it means to escape out of Egypt. The spiritual counterpart of the Exodus is the acceptance of the kingdom of heaven during the recitation of the Shema, and one's desire to cleave to God and be united with Him. For by these means, the soul frees itself from the exile and confines of the body and becomes one with God.
Right. So it's like escaping the will of the nefesh habehemit.
Yeah, you could put it that way. Yes, paro. Yeah.
Of the.
Of yeah.
How do you say that in English? What's the
Physicality.
translation to that?
What?
What's the translation? The divine soul and the animal soul. Yeah,
Animal soul.
It's the escaping, subordinating the animal soul. That's the Exodus.
Yeah. ולכן תקנו פרשת יציאת מצרים בשעת קריאת שמע דווקא. And that's why specifically we read the paragraph regarding the Exodus of Egypt when we say Kriyat Shema, right? Shehi mitzvah bifnei atzma, even though you have a separate mitzvah that every day you're supposed to remember the variously numbered 6 or 10, I think most people say 10 schirot, 10 things, 10 mitzvot you have to remember every day.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? So this is a mitzvah by itself. V'lo mitzvat kriyat shema kedeita b'gamara uposkim, and as is described, this isn't really something that is part of the mitzvah of kriyat shema. Ela mipnei, Chazi says 6 zichronot, but my Sidur actually has 10 of them.
I think in Chabad it says like I remember the 6 remembrances.
Yes, 6 remembrances I've seen, 10 remembrances I've seen, the 12 remembrances I've seen.
6 not 12, 12 not 10.
Yeah, so there's, for example, remembering the man. And some people include remembering the manna in the desert as part of Yetziat Mitzrayim, and some people have it as a separate zichronot.
Yeah.
But 6 I've definitely seen. Chazi says Zohar also does a similar move with the word ami and reads imi, with me, as in the people of Israel interacting with the Torah together with God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Ela mipnei shehen davar echad mamish. But he's explaining that they are actually so united that they need to be done together. V'chen besof parshat Yetziat Mitzrayim מסיים גם כן אני השם אלוקיכם והיינו גם כן כמו שנתבהר לעיל. Right,
it's like the right hand and the left hand in terms of like pushing away with the left hand, so pushing away Mitzrayim or Egypt and bringing in God. Right, so it's like it's an openness and closeness, like an openness and a right, like you accept, like you accept you're open. So if it's chesed, it's more about openness.
Mhm.
And then if it's severity,
It's more about
closeness, right? Or like, yeah, you're
Okay.
shutting out the animal soul, and
Okay.
at the same time, you're also opening up to the godly soul, and for that will to go through you. So it's two things at the same time. That's why it's in one verse. Like that's what I'm thinking about.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not sure how. I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and but I don't see how you're relating it to what he says here.
Well, he's making a point about in the previous section,
Mhm.
that it's all in the same. It's in the same. It's this in the same part. It's in the same prayer. And the
Right.
Shema, right? The Shema, which is accepting,
Okay. Yeah.
and
And
Egypt, which is like, yeah, it's just
the
drawing away
people
from.
all. Uh-huh.
So I mean, yeah, it's like
And yet,
in order to accept something, you need to pour the water out of the cup, or pour whatever is in the cup. Or I mean, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you're correct. Yeah. Kibul all and Yetziat Mitzrayim. Interesting. Yep. Okay. I believe this is the end of the thing. V'chen b'sof parshat Yetziat Mitzrayim sem v'hayinu gam ken kamo shenidbar la. Yep, like we said above.
Nice.
Chapter 48. It's all you.
Let's do it. והנה כאשר התבונן המשכיל בגדולת אין סוף ברוך הוא, כי כשמו כן הוא, אין סוף ואין קץ ותכלית כלל, לאור וחיות המתפשט ממנו יתברך ברצונו הפשוט. So contemplating the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof, the thinking person will come to the realization that as his name indicates, as his God's name indicates, so is he. There is no end or limit or finitude at all to the light and vitality that diffuse from his simple will. Simple in the sense that it has no cause, nor is it subject to the limitations inherent in mortal will, right? Simple, not complex. ומיוחד במהותו ועצמותו יתברך בתכלית הייחוד, and which is united with his essence and being in perfect unity. Okay. ואילו הייתה השתלשלות העולמות מאור אין סוף ברוך הוא בלי צמצומים, רק כסדר המדרגות ממדרגה למדרגה בדרך עילה ואלול, had the worlds descended from the light of the blessed Ein Sof without contractions, but according to a gradual descent from great to great by means of cause and effect. What's the notes? לא היה העולם הזה.
You want to read the notes? You can read the notes.
You could. I'm waiting for him to go into it, and then, but yeah, we could.
Up to you.
Let's continue and then see if we need to. Or yeah. So לא היה העולם הזה נברא כלל כמו שהוא עתה בבחינת גבול ותכלית מהארץ לרקיע מהלך תף שנה. This world and all it contains would not have been created in its present form, in a finite and limited order.
Right. So if there was no tzimtzum, right? If we were simply having a light that wasn't being degraded each time it goes from madriga to madriga, then it wouldn't be like it is now.
From the earth to the firmament is this in 500 years. Finite. Interesting. So
he's saying that the light is being is being poured into something finite, into something that is not infinite, right?
Because so why is that different from cause and effect?
Without tzimtzum, an infinite light could not fit into the into a finite structure.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's why there must be tzimtzumim.
Mm-hmm. Okay. וכן, בין כל רקיע לרקיע, וכן עובי כל רקיע ורקיע. And similarly, limited is the distance between one firmament and the next, and so also the radial extent of each firmament is a distance of 500 years. So there's a finite limitation between one and one.
Yeah. We're talking about a world of limitations, a world where there is tzimtzum.
ואפילו עולם הבא וגן עדן העליון, מדור נשמות הצדיקים הגדולים והנשמות עצמן, ואין צריך לומר המלאכים, אין בבחינת גבול ותכלית. Even the world to come and the higher level of Gan Eden, the abode of the souls of the great tzaddikim and the souls themselves, and needless to add the angels, are all in the realm of bounds and limitation. כי יש גבול להשגתן באור אין סוף ברוך הוא, המאיר עליהן בהתלבשות חוכמה, בינה, דעת וכולי. There is a limit to their apprehension of the light of the blessed in self, which shines upon them through being clothed in Chabad and so on. So the reference is limited. Okay. Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, basically, the whole time he's just been saying that there is tzimtzum and there has been degradation from level to level.
There's a connection that goes through this field, through Chabad.
Correct.
ולכן, יש גבול להנאתן שנהנין מזיו השכינה, מתענגין באור השם. Hence, there is also a limit to the enjoyment that they derive from the rays of the Shekhinah and to their pleasure in the light of God. כי אין יכולים לקבל הנאה ותענוג בבחינת אין סוף ממש, שלא יתבטלו ממציאותן ויחזרו למקורן. For they are incapable of deriving enjoyment and delight of an infinite order without being nullified out of their existence and returning to their source.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just interested about like where is this going? Because I mean, we actually just what I'm thinking about. Before this we talked about how you need to annul yourself to the will of God. Now he's talking a little bit about how like you can't really be like you can't just nullify yourself in a complete way because you're like yeah. So obviously he's going somewhere here. Yeah. והנה פרטיות הצמצומים, איך ומה, אין כאן מקום ביאורם. Now, as for the intricate details of the contractions, how they achieve their effect and what they actually are, this is not the place for their explanation. אך דרך כלל, הם בחינת הסתר וההלם, המשכת האור והחיות. But in general, they are something in the nature of an obscuring and concealment of the flow of light and vitality. שלא יאיר ויומשך לתחתונים מבחינת גילוי, להתלבש ולהשפיע בהן ולאחרתם להיות יש מאין. So that the light and vitality should illumine and reach the lower creatures in a revealed manner, pervading them and acting in them and animating them in such a way that they exist ex nihilo. So, how is this? Maybe this is too tangential, or this is not connected. So you can just say, let's deal with that later. But how here is it different? Like the Tzimtzum, the Vilna Gaon Tzimtzum, like how is that different here?
Well, I won't presume to understand either the Alter Rebbe's explanation of Tzimtzum or the Vilna Gaon's,
Mm-hmm.
but how I have heard it explained. I mean, the Vilna Gaon's explanation was oftentimes referred to as Tzimtzum Kepeshuto, right? Which
Mhm.
means literal retraction of God. Now, so what does that mean? Literal retraction of God. And there are many great rabbis who, in actuality, they will explain it in such a way to say almost that the whole thing was a misunderstanding, and really they understand it. The Vilna Gaon and the Alter Rebbe really have a very similar understanding.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the correct answer. I don't know. But part of the entire discussion was that there were people who would defend the idea that there are places, there are things which exist in the world from which God has completely removed himself from,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the Hasidic way of looking at it, and and generally is not the way anybody looks at it today, right?
Right. So when we're talking about here the contractions, they're a veil and a hester, but they are connected. They have the connection between like the Chabad through the Sfiot, the Tzimtzum. Obviously, we're simplifying or we're misunderstanding from what we understand. What I understand now is that the Vilna Gaon talks about how there isn't necessarily, right, or Makif, there isn't necessarily that energy that flows down to specific things.
So let's be maybe a little vulgar, but you have a piece of feces.
Yeah.
There were people who would say, no, there's no godliness here. There's no godliness here. Right? This is something that is completely without godliness.
But for some things there is godliness.
Well, yeah. So they would say there is a very fundamental difference between, when you kill an animal, right, and you take from its leather and you turn it into something that is holy, like tefillin, right? Then you are in a real sense creating something that has actual godliness in it, and other parts of the animal, which the intestines and stuff, which you would obviously throw away, right?
Have no potential for godliness.
There's no holiness there whatsoever. That
Okay.
that is an understanding of Tzimtzum Kipeshuta, right?
Okay.
This has largely been basically rejected by everyone. And even people who try to explain the Vilna Gaon don't explain it quite that way.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
But
yeah.
the Hasidic answer to that is there are places which are more hidden and less hidden, but there's a more makif.
Yeah.
Right? There is that transcendent background holiness which nothing can affect, right? Ani havaya lo shaniti. I am the Lord, I have not changed.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes. Can we do a bathroom break?
We can do a bathroom break. I will put a 5-minute counter.
You can do 2. Yalla.
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 Yalla. I think this is where we were. Shelo Yair.
Oh, that's me, right? I'm speaking.
You are speaking.
Okay. Okay, let's do it. Okay. שלא יאיר ויומשך לתחתונים בבחינת גילוי, להתלבש ולהשפיע בהן ולהחיותם להיות יש מאין. Right, we read this. So that the light should illumine and reach the lower creatures in a revealed matter, pervading them and acting in them and animating them in such a way that they exist ex nihilo. כי אם מעט מזער אור וחיות בכדי שיהיו בבחינת גבול ותכלית. In only an extremely minute measure so that they be in a state of finitude and limitation. שהיא הערה מועטת מאוד וממש כלא חשיבי, כלה חשיבה לגבי בחינת הערה, בלי גבול ותכלית ואין ביניהם ערך ויחס כלל. This light and vitality constitutes an infinitesimal illumination and is truly considered as naught when compared with the quality of the limitless and infinite illumination, and there is no proportion or relationship between them. So it's like the metaphor of the sun and the rays of the sun that reach this world as we see it through the window. The quality and the difference between them is finite as it is. It's not to compare it to the infinite. כנודע, פירוש מילת ערך במספרים, שאחד במספר יש לו ערך לגבי מספר אלף אלפים, שהוא חלק אחד מיני אלף אלפים, as the term proportion is understood in number values, where the number stands in a certain ratio to the number 1 million, for it is a 1/1,000,000th part of it.
So we're talking about something that is quantitatively different, not qualitatively different, right? It's something that has, like, you can talk about 1,000,000 like is a lot bigger than one, but it's still like it's a number.
Right. אבל לגבי דבר שהוא בבחינת בלי גבול, הוא מספר כלל, אין כנגדו שום ערך במספרים. But as regards a thing which transcends finitude and numeration, there is no number, however great, that can be relative to it. שאפילו אלף אלפי אלפים וריבו רבבות אינן אפילו כערך מספר אחד לגבי אלף אלפי אלפים וריבו רבבות. For a billion and a trillion, when compared to infinity, do not even attain the relevancy of the value of one in comparison with a billion or a trillion. אלא כלה ממש חשיבה.
Yeah. So one metaphor I sometimes like to give is, how much would you buy a credit card for that you didn't have to pay? Right? What would be the price of a credit card, like that you could buy whatever you want?
Yeah.
Right?
A lot. I'll pay a lot for it.
you would pay a lot, but like whether you're paying $1 or $1 million or $1 billion, right? It's infinite.
Yeah.
Right?
וככה ממש, היא בחינת הערה מועטת זו, המתלבשת בעולמות עליונים ותחתונים להשפיע בהם להחיותם. So indeed is the utterly insignificant quality of this minute illumination after the contraction, which clothes itself in the higher and lower worlds in order to provide them with sustenance and life. לגבי ערך אור הגנוז ונעלם שהוא בבחינת אין סוף, when compared with the quality of the hidden and concealed light that is of an infinite order. So I feel like he pulled us, like he started with saying like how the light pervades this world So it comes down, but now he's pulling back a little bit and says, yeah, but this light that comes down is its quantity and quality is so much different than the Or and Sof. There is something, but now he's like pulling back in terms
Yeah.
of
So he's explaining his thing of Tzimtzum as
Mhm.
opposed to like Tzimtzum Kipashut, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, okay, so it's as if the light isn't there, but that's because of but there is, but that's only because it is qualitatively less in a sense.
Okay, that's I was thinking that he's saying that just also from the perspective of like, yes, it is there, but it's not like it's anything like the light that is up
Right.
there.
Yeah. So he's explaining because like what Hasidim were, and I mean once you get into the letters and stuff, you'll see that Hasidim were being criticized heavily for saying that there was godliness in places that really the Mitnagdim were
Right.
like, no, there's no godliness there at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was a real shift to say, no, there is some godliness, being reflected even in that. So, for example, in Sivot Harivash, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a famous thing of the Baal Shem Tov that he said that if a Gentile starts screaming at you, you have to recognize that this is an extension of God. Like this is something from God,
Mm-hmm.
right? That this person is yelling at you. And there were people who would want to say, no, this is just an evil person who's yelling at you. And there's no cause for me to think that it is God's will for me to be seeing this person who's mad at me.
Right.
Hasidic interpretation was very different.
Mm-hmm.
Different way of looking at it.
Yeah. לגבי ערך אור הגנוז ונעלם, שהוא בבחינת אין סוף.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, the light what we see here, when compared with the quality of the hidden and concealed light, that is of an infinite order, it doesn't compare with that. ואינו מתלבש ומשפיע בעולמות בבחינת גילוי לאחיותם, אלא מקיף עליהם מלמעלה, ונקרא סובב כל עלמין. So this is what Chezi mentioned, and does not clothe itself or exercise its influence in the world in a revealed manner, providing them with life, but encompasses them from above, exerts its influences while remaining on its own level, and is called Sovev Kol Almin, encompassing all worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Which is different than reading the note, unlike the light that pervades all worlds, Memale Kol Almin, which permeates and vests itself within them, just as the soul vests itself in the body. The encompassing light remains aloof from the worlds. Yeah. I don't know. It probably doesn't, it doesn't map onto it exactly, but like the agent arena aspect.
No, that actually does. Yeah, no. So that's one of the things that I often told Vanderklay early, and actually Yosef went on his channel and spoke to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right, was about this God 1, God 2 thing, which we have a very developed theology of, which he doesn't. Right, and in some ways, I think he misunderstands things because he doesn't have the developed theology that Judaism has of God one, God two, and Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Right? Understanding what it means, Ani Havaya Elokechem, right? Is there is an aspect of God which is what you could call God one in Vervaeke, in Vander Clay's term, and there is an aspect of God you could refer to as God two in his terms, and what Judaism says quite clearly that the Bible is teaching is Ani Havaya Elokechem, that these two aspects are manifest in the same God. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you watch Christine Hayes's Yale introduction to the Old Testament, right, which is it's on YouTube, the entirety of the whole thing, right? And she gets into Kaufman's explanation of how the Jewish God was different, and he talks about the Aaronic and Agentic, and the Jewish God was different in that it crashed the two together.
The historical, I'm not sure that I'm getting it right. You can correct me, but the historical and like the Eloi Yaakov, Eloi Avraham, Yaakov, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the natural or the
so the God who spoke and the world was, right? The God of Genesis 1, who speaks, and so that's a more Aaronic type of thing, right? He's a God outside the world, is the one who speaks to Abraham. Right? It's the same God that speaks and with his words creates the world is the God who speaks to Abraham.
Yeah. And then the final thing that I just wanted to add on this is that I like the agentic Aaronic because if I don't know if you mentioned it here, but I just also read this in the Bati Lagani, like in terms of doing the itkafia and the mitzvot is a way to bring in the memale kol almin, the filling all worlds, which is in a way saying that you are bringing in the agency of God, right? The will, you're performing it in here. So there's suddenly agency. You're being the agent.
Right.
So the agency kind of that really kind of connects to that, I feel.
Right. And in being the agent, you are in fact kind of revealing the Sovev.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ואין הפירוש סובב ומקיף מלמעלה בבחינת מקום, חס ושלום, כי לא שייך כלל בחינת מקום ברוחניות. So the meaning of this is not that it encircles and encompasses from above spatially, God forbid. For in spiritual matters, the category of space is in no way applicable. So no clouds and nothing like that.
Yeah, no location.
No location. אלא רוצה לומר, סובב ומקיף מלמעלה לעניין בחינת גילוי השפעה. But the meaning is that it encircles and encompasses from above insofar as the revelation of this influence is concerned. כי ההשפעה שהוא בבחינת גילוי בעולמות נקראת בשם הלבשה, שמתלבשת בעולמות כי הם מלבישים ומשיגים ההשפעה שמקבלים. For influence, which is in the category of revelation in the worlds, is referred to as investiture, being clothed within the worlds. For the influence that they receive is clothed and comprehended by them. מה שאין כן, ההשפעה שאינה בבחינת גילוי, אלא בהסתר והאלם, ואין העולמות משיגים אותה. אינה נקראת מתלבשת, אלא מקפת וסובבת. Whereas the influence which does not come within the category of revelation, but remains obscured and concealed and is not apprehended apprehended by the worlds is not described as being invested in them, but is encircling and encompassing them. אי לכך, מאחר שהעולמות הם בבחינת גבול ותכלית, therefore, since the worlds belong in the order of the finite and limited, נמצא שאין השפעת אור אינסוף מתלבש ומתגלה בהם בבחינת גילוי, רק מעט מזער, הערה מועטת מצומצמת מאוד מאוד. It follows that only an extremely minute and contracted reflection of the flow of the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof clothes itself and manifests itself in them in a revealed form. ויראה כדי להחיותם בבחינת גבול ותכלית. And this only to animate them in a finite and revealed state. Right. Okay, so yeah, so the light is there only to animate them.
Yeah, to make this still exist.
Yeah.
But in that it exists, it has some godliness.
Yeah. אבל עיקר האור בלי צמצום כל כך נקרא מקיף וסובב, מאחר שאין השפעתו מתגלית בתוכם, מאחר שהם בבחינת גבול ותכלית. But the principal light that is without contraction to such an extent is called mekif, encircler, and sovev, encompasser, since its influence is not revealed within the world as much as they belong in the order of the finite and the limited. Sorry. אבל עיקר האור בלי צמצום כל כך נראה מקיף וסובב. Oh, we read this, right?
You read the Hebrew, yes.
But the principal light that is without contraction to such an extent is called Mekif and circle and Sovev and compasser, since its influence is not revealed within the world in as much as they belong in the order of the finite and the limited.
So, yeah, Makif is beyond the world, whereas Memala is revealed in the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. והמשל בזה, הנה הארץ הלזו הגשמיות, אף שמלא כל הארץ כבודו. To illustrate this point, consider this material world. Even though the whole world is full of his glory, as we say in the Kedusha, והיינו אור אין סוף ברוך הוא, כמו שכתוב, הלא את השמיים ואת הארץ אני מלא, נאום השם, namely, not only with a minute glimmer of godliness, but with the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof, as it is written, do I not fill heaven and earth, says the Lord. אף על פי כן, אין מתלבש בתוכה, ובחינת גילוי ההשפעה, רק חיות מעט מזער, בכינות דומם וצומח לבד. Nevertheless, only very limited vitality, of no more than the category of what is revealed in the inanimate and vegetable worlds, is clothed within this world in the form of revealed influence. וכל אור אין סוף ברוך הוא נקרא סובב עליה, אף שהוא בתוכה ממש. While all the light of the blessed Ein Sof, which fills the world itself in a concealed manner, is described as encompassing it, even though it actually pervades it. I'm not sure why he brought the vegetable and
because those are considered the lowest. So we have the four categories: Domen, Someach, Chai, Medaber.
Yeah.
Right? And in each of those capacities, right? Even in the capacity to grow, you are displaying more godliness. But even a stone which has no capacity to grow or to move or to speak or anything, right?
Yeah.
It still has godliness encompassing it because it says Ani Malekol.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Got it. וכל אור אין סוף ברוך הוא נקרא סובב עליה, אף שהוא בתוכה ממש. But all the light of the blessed Ein Sof is described as encompassing it, even though it actually pervades it. מאחר שאין השפעתו מתגלית בה יותר, רק משפיע בה בבחינת הסתר וההלם. Since its influence is no more revealed in it, but affects it in a hidden and concealed manner. וכל השפעה שבבחינת הסתר נקרא מקיף מלמעלה. And any influence of a concealed nature is referred to as encircling from above. כי אלמה דאיטקסיה הוא למעלה במדרגה מאלמה דאיטגליה. למעלה במדרגה. For alma deitkasia, the hidden world, is on a higher plane than alma deitgalia, the revealed world. Okay.
Yeah, let's read it.
A godliness drawn down in a concealed manner from the hidden world is on a higher plane than that which is drawn down in a revealed manner from the revealed world. Emanating as it does from a higher level, this mode of divine influence is said to be encircling from above. Right. So there's a lot of, using a lot of spatial metaphors here.
Yeah.
ולקרב אל השכל או אל השכל,
השכל יותר.
לקרב אל השכל יותר הוא בדרך משל. So let's make this more intelligible by means of an example. כמו האדם שמצייר בדעתו איזה דבר שראה או שרואה. When a person forms an image in his mind of something that he has seen or sees, הנה אף שכל גוף עצם הדבר ההוא וגבו ותוכו ותוך תוכו כולו מצויר בדעתו ומחשבתו, מפני שראהו כולו או שרוההו, even though the entire body and essence of that thing, both its exterior and interior and its very core, are completely mirrored in his mind and thought, for he has seen it or is seeing it in its entirety, הנה נקראת דעתו מקפת הדבר ההוא כולו. This is expressed by saying that his mind encompasses that object completely. והדבר ההוא מוקף בדעתו ומחשבתו. And that this thing, this object, is enveloped by his mind and thought. רק שאינו מוקף בפועל ממש. רק בדמיון מחשבת האדם ודעתו. But it is not encompassed in actual fact, only in the imagination of the man's thoughts and mind. אבל הקדוש ברוך הוא דכתיב ביה. What is be?
Be is Aramaic way of saying bo.
Bo?
Bo, yeah. So this Tsere Yud He is the Aramaic suffix, which is the equivalent of the Vav in Hebrew.
אבל הקדוש ברוך הוא דכתיב אוקיי. כי לא מחשבותיי, מחשבותיכם כולי. God, however, of whom it is written, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. So it is utterly impossible for us to grasp his thought process. הרי מחשבתו ודעתו שיודע כל הנבראים, מקפת כל נברא ונברא, מראשו והתחתיתו ותוכו ותוך תוכו, הכל בפועל ממש. His thoughts, God's thoughts, and his mind, which knows all created beings, encompasses each and every created thing from its head, highest level, to its end, its lowest level, its inside, and its very core, all in actual reality.
Yeah, so if I think of, let's say, an orange, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I completely understand that orange and it's in my imagination, the orange is still something that is not, it's not like I'm holding it, right?
Yeah.
But when we talk about God, right, that his thought is completely different from ours, right? In the mere conceptualization of something, he's in fact making it an actuality. He's completely encompassing it.
Yeah. למשל, כדור הארץ על זו, הרי ידיעתו יתברך מקפת כל עובי כדור הארץ וכל אשר בתוכו ותוך תוכו עד תחתיתו, הכל בפועל ממש. For example, in the case of the orb of this earth, his knowledge encompasses the entire diameter of the globe of the earth, together with all that is in it and its deepest interior to its lowest depths, all in actual reality. שהרי ידיעה זו היא חיות כל עובי כדור הארץ כולו, והתהוותו מאין ליש. For this knowledge constitutes the vitality of the whole spherical thickness of the earth and its creation ex nihilo.
Right? Because it only exists because of God created it.
Created it, and like it says, as a result, and it continues to exist as a result of God's knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like we're in a speech bubble, not a speech bubble, like a thought bubble.
In a sense, yeah.
רק שלא היה מתהווה כמות שהוא עתה, בעל גבול ותכלית וחיות מועטת מאוד, כדי בחינות דומם וצומח. However, it would not have come into being as it is now, as a finite and limited thing with an exceedingly minute degree of vitality, sufficient for the categories of inorganic matter and vegetation, אם לא, על ידי צמצומים רבים ועצומים שצמצמו האור והחיות שנתלבש בכדור הארץ, were it not for the many powerful contractions which have condensed the light and vitality that is clothed in the orb of the earth, להחיותו ולקיימו בבחינת גבול ותכלית, ובבחינות דומם וצומח בלבד, so as to animate it and sustain it in its finite and limited status and in the categories of inorganic and vegetable matter alone. אך ידיעתו יתברך המיוחדת במהותו ועצמותו, כי הוא המדע והוא היודע והוא הידוע. For he is the knowledge, the knower, and the known. Right. בידיעת עצמו כביכול יודע כל הנבראים. And knowing himself, as it were, he knows all created beings. ולא בידיעה שחוץ ממנו, כידיעת האדם, though not with a knowledge that is external to himself, like the knowledge of a human being, כי כולם נמצאים מהמיתתו יתברך. For all of the created beings are derived from his true reality. Interesting. God's true reality and existence is, this is the note, God's true reality and existence is the source of all created beings. By knowing himself, therefore, as mentioned just above, he knows all of creation. And obviously, so we can make the point, by knowing creation, we also can know God.
Because he is the one that created it.
ודבר זה אין ביכולת האדם להשיגו על בוריו וכולי. And this thing is not within the power of human beings to comprehend clearly, and so on.
Long note.
It goes through,
Yeah. It's I believe
the knower,
where the quote comes from. It's apparently Maimonides. Yeah.
כמו שכתב הרמב"ם זיכרונו לברכה, as Rambam of blessed memory has written, that God, his is knowledge, knower, and known. And as the scholars of Kabbalah have agreed with his views, as is stated in the Pardes of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero of blessed memory. והסכימו עמו חכמי הקבלה, כמו שכתוב בפרדס, מהרמ"ק זיכרונו לברכה. Didn't know that was his abbreviation, Ramak.
Ramak? Yeah.
וכן הוא לפי קבלת הארי זיכרונו לברכה. This is also in accord with the Kabbalah of our master, Rabbi Yitzchak Loria Ariza of blessed memory. בסוד הצמצומים והתלבשות אורות בכלים, כמו שנתבהר לעיל בפרק ב', in the mystery, the doctrine of contraction and the clothing of the lights of the Sfirot in the vessels of the Sfirot has been explained previously in chapter 2. הרי ידיעה זו, מאחר שהיא בבחינת אין סוף, אינה נקראת בשם מתלבשת בכדור הארץ, שהוא בעל גבול ותכלית, אלא מקפת וסובבת. This knowledge, then, since it is of an infinite order, is not described as clothing itself in the orb of the earth, which is finite and limited, while God's knowledge is limitless, but as encircling and encompassing it. אף שידיעה זו כוללת כל אביו ותוכו בפועל ממש. Even though this knowledge embraces its entire thickness and interior in actual reality. ומהווה אותו על ידי זה מאין ליש, thereby giving it existence ex nihilo, וכמו שנתבאר במקום אחר. As is explained elsewhere, that creation ex nihilo can take place only as a result of the encompassing light. Interesting.
How many chapters?
I think there's 54, isn't there?
Let's see. Likutei Amarim 53.
Close.
Yep. We're almost there.
Mm-hmm. And then it's Likutei Amarim is the letters, or is that the third?
No, Likutei Amarim is Tanya itself, right? So that's the first part. Second part,
Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah.
Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah, which is the part that Rabbi Dolphin this morning mentioned Noachites could study. Igeret HaTeshuvah is talks about repentance, and then Igeret HaKodesh is a collection of many letters that he wrote, and Kuntras Acharon is where he gets very Kabbalistic.
As opposed to
the rest of it, yes. Yes. So Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah and Kuntras Acharon are considered two of the hardest, most Kabbalistic texts to study. Yeah. Sha'ar Yichud Ve'emunah actually happens to also be my favorite part of Tanya.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it would be pretty cool to go through it.
It will be.
Ezrat Hashem. Forget that.
Ezrat Hashem. Yeah.
So who's the next shliach that you're gonna have on?
I honestly I didn't expect Rabbi Dolphin to even come on. I'm very glad that he did. I'm kind of surprised his channel is so much smaller than YY Jacobson. I mean, I think he's hard to understand for a lot of people, but I think he's easier to understand than YY Jacobson. And I think he would do better if he told more stories. He wasn't telling a lot of stories, and he knows a lot of stories. I mean, I haven't read his books yet. I ordered a couple of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to see. I don't know what they're like, but somebody who spent so much time with the Rebbe and Rebbe Yoel Kahn, and in Northern California during the 80s, and with Rabbi Kunin in the 90s, he seems like he must have a lot of stories. And his channel, I mean, I'm glad he was willing to talk about the things he was willing to talk about.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are.
It's good. It's good. You have voices.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could invite your shliach to come on our channel.
I could.
You could.
Yeah, I can see. I'm trying. I can see if he wants to. I mean, I can invite. I mean, yeah, it could be for the Tanya, especially one of his sons. I
mean, do they put his classes on YouTube?
They don't. I think he used to have it like in Austin, like a local public TV
Right.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
But no longer.
Hey, if my channel is his channel, if he wants to, if you want to record his classes,
Yeah.
we can certainly upload them, and
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if more people watch them online than attend them in real life. That happens a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to gauge. Yeah, I'm just thinking about like, yeah, what's the like the topic, the angle, the things that we can discuss.
Look, you could also have him on as, hey, this is my shliach. This is,
Mhm.
just have a conversation.
I mean, it is interesting to hear about just from a little bit with Rabbi Dolphin, just to hear about the history and the things, how things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people. I don't think Rabbi Dolphin realizes. I mean, I don't know, but like, I don't think he sees that there would be a lot of people who would just be very interested in hearing. Like, he was talking about opening Cafe Schmooze, right, in Los Angeles, right? That's interesting, Like, there apparently the Los Angeles Times did an article on it. I should probably look that up. But
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I am going to end this broadcast.
Thank you for this broadcast and this show.